All right, so now we're gonna go on, and this wonderful space here that's in the middle between the bumper and the grill is just too empty. We need to fill that with something, and what I got is this guy. Kind of looked around on the internet and in store and everything. I picked this up in stock in store, and it was 45 bucks, then a 20% discount coupon, all that good stuff from Harbor Freight. So I kind of eyeballed it, looking at it when I first pulled it out, and looks like it should just bolt right in. These holes, 2 holes here, and then these 2 holes here. Look like they line up perfectly for where the tow hooks go. I'm planning on putting the tow hooks back in, and I'll probably have to modify it and cut out this last little bit here on the edge and then repaint it. But other than that, hopefully that's all the modifications I'm going to have to do. Now, looking at the instructions, they've got all these other holes here, like this one here and this one here, that they say you're supposed to tie into your frame, but it doesn't work with Wranglers. There's nothing to tie in there, just the grill. So we'll get that plate, the factory Jeep plastic plate, out and see how well this thing fits. All right, so I have 2 issues going on right now. The one, I don't know for sure which set of holes I'm going to be using, because it's either one of these two, these two, these two, or these two for the winch, because I'm actually going to be taking the winch off of my '89 Cherokee and putting it on this one. It's a little bit lower rated, which is going to be suited better for this lighter vehicle. My Cherokee, I'm sure, already kind of outweighs what the standard factory weight is, just from all the skid plates I put on there. They say you want to have double the winch capacity of your own vehicle weight. A lot of people just go and get the most expensive and the max load one that they can, which is fine. I plan on doing that for my Cherokee, because you never know who you might need to help pull out. But the one I have is an 8500 series. I think it's a Simpson winch. And I've got a snatch block, so it essentially doubles the pull power at that point, so I should be fine with this. But I'm just trying to figure out which holes I need, so I don't know for sure which ones I need. I'm pretty sure it's the outer set, but I gotta go check that. And then also, I've got on the front here holes that I have to drill out, but the problem that I'm going to be running into is that I don't know if I'm going to be able to get, I'm probably going to have to mount the winch onto the plate first, and then I'm going to have to mount the winch on the plate first and then mount it on here, because I've also got some issues with some spacing here. I'm probably going to need to notch out the bumper, which is going to be a pain in the ass, to account for the bolts that are going to go in there, plus the height difference. I think that the rears are going to be fine for the bolt clearance, but the fronts I might have to do something, and might have to end up spacing this whole thing up a little bit higher just to clear all the bolts and everything. So it's not as easy as a project I was hoping it was going to be, but we'll get it taken care of and get back to you here with what the options are. So this is the Harbor Freight winch plate that I've got. I got my winch taken off of my Cherokee and all the cables pulled out and everything, and is a Superwinch LP 8500. I bought it a very, very long time ago. As you can tell, it's been sitting in the garage and just about never been used, other than I paid out all the cable and pre-tensioned everything once I first installed it. But what I got here, it came with this Haas Fairlead for steel cable, so I've got that mounted on here. And yeah, I've got really long bolts, but I'm planning on getting a license plate holder and some accessory light holders to put between here and between the plate and the Haas Fairleads. So I've got some longer bolts that I had just sitting around that matched the original bolts that came with it. They're automotive bolts. You can tell they've got a shouldered head on them and everything. So, but the clearance is pretty tight. It does fit. It uses the outer set of 4 holes, so everything should bolt up. It's just a matter of now getting it to mount onto the YJ and see how it goes from there. So, but I'm going to try and get this bolted up first, and then see how well it mounts and keep going. Okay, so I got the winch plate back on the Jeep here, and what I think I'm going to have to do is mark these holes here and then cut a groove out of the bumper underneath, so then I can get a bolt to slide up in there, or at least get it to fit in there when I drop the plate in, because there's the cross member, that tube cross member here, that is actually in the way. That's where I'm going with right now, and we will see about the rear, because there's another little thinner part of the grill support that sits right here, and I might just need to knock a little bit out of that just to make that clearance for the bolts. So as you can tell, it's kind of raining. The weather doesn't know what it wants to do, but we'll keep plugging on this and see where it takes us. Okay, so what we got going on here is I didn't want to have to take the bumper off every time I wanted to take the winch off, and I don't want to have to, you know, they need to be separate from each other. So what I figured out actually when I took the plate off again was that I could actually reach underneath behind the bumper and in front of this cross member here and actually get to it. So I marked the holes in the winch plate, and if for some reason down the road I've got to take the bumper off or switch something out, I don't foresee that happening anytime near in the near future. All I have to do is undo the front bolts for the winch, and then I can pull the bumper off with the normal bolts. So I'm hoping that this will work. I just gotta get it cleaned up. I drilled them out to 1/2 inch just to give me a little bit extra wiggle room, and I'm gonna get the plate back on here and bring the winch out and just do a test fit and see how well this fits in here. All right guys, so right now what I did was took off some material there on the outer edge of the winch plate to allow for the tow hooks to go back on, because I still want to have the tow hooks mounted into the frame here. So notched it so I could actually get a hook on it too for the winch, or just have plenty of room for straps or whatnot as well. So I cut it about 4.5 inches in here, and then cut it across, and then ground down right where the hook goes so it sits flat. Same thing on this side. See, it's pretty flat now right there where the bolts line up, so I'm gonna have to paint it all. And then also on the bumper, what I did was I notched the top of it. This is the top here that you're looking at, so that the bolts heads can sit down in there. So hopefully, I don't know what this is going to do to the strength of the bumper itself, so I don't recommend doing this unless you are willing to take the risk of having your bumper pull out on you, because with the center hitch, granted it's all welded to the bottom of it, but I don't know how that's going to affect the integrity of the entire bumper in general. But it's going to allow me to be able to put the winch plate on after the bumper's been put on, and be able to remove the winch plate if need to, and so I don't have to remove the whole system altogether. It just seemed like the best option out of all the different choices I had, because there's no way to get the bolts for the bottom of the winch with the bumper on. There's no way to get the winch belt bolts up in between here and the bumper. I tried several times last night, yesterday, something like that. I just couldn't get it in there without having to take the whole bumper off anyway. So I still might have to notch out this cross piece here. Be careful if you decide to do that, because there is a brake line that runs underneath there. But we'll get the winch mounted on to the plate and then see how it all fits together. So I'm gonna have to dry fit all this and then paint everything. But I want the winch and the plate to sit as far down as possible onto the frame. I'm sure that people are like, oh, we'll just put a spacer in there. Well, the more spacer you have, the longer the bolts and everything, the more chance you have of ripping stuff off. So I want to try and not do that, and keep everything as low and as tight to the frame as possible. So we'll see how this goes. All right, so here we go. I got the dry fit on. Everything seems to line up right. Everything's going in good, and looks really good. So I just got to get underneath and cut the that little single cross member there to allow for the rear set of bolts, and I've got it marked with everything on here. So we'll get that off, cut it, and hit everything with paint, and then get it remounted. All right, guys. So I've got the winch mounted to the plate, bolted in underneath already. You can see I got the plate painted, good to go. Got the bumper cut out and that painted, and over on the Jeep itself I got this cross member cut out and painted and touched up a few other spots that I had hit drilling. Yeah, I know there's a lot of rust and it is what it is, but so like I said, just be careful if you do cut this out, because that is the brake line right behind there. I'm not sure which way it's running from one side or the other, but it's definitely a brake line and you don't want to cut those. So but otherwise this allows room for the bolts on the rear of the winch and everything to sit down flush. So between this piece, this cross piece here, and the bumper, I just put between here and here, and the height of the bumper matching this, I just put 3 grade 8 flat washers, 1/2 inch washers back here to space out the distance between here, the frame rail, and this cross plate, and then everything sits down flush, and it's flush all the way across, and there's no gaps and no deforming of the plate. So so far with all my dry fitting and everything looks good. So let's put it all together and see how it fits for the last time. All right, guys, so sorry about the wind, but we got it on. Everything's bolted in, mounted down. Let's see if I can show you here. There's the washers there, grade 8. Got everything bolted down nice and tight. I used anti-seize on the bolts up here and the one underneath, just because they're on the front of the truck. We're in the rust belt, so I want to be able to get them out. So we use a little bit of anti-seize. Got the winch on there. I like the way it looks. Everything's sitting pretty nice. I'm just going to hit a few more touch-up spots with paint, and then we'll get this thing wired up real quick and call it a day. All right, guys, moment of truth. Got this thing all wired up and got the remote in. And one thing here quick is that these little tassels here that they ship with the winches, that's so you can hold on to it, so when you roll it in, you don't pinch the shit out of your fingers. I see a lot of people online that are just grabbing the hooks. That's what these little tassels are for. Put them on there, they're safe, they keep you from getting your fingers pinched. So anyways, I got it wired up. We're gonna check it. Usually you want to do this while the engine's running so you don't drain your battery really bad. I'm just doing this couple of feet, so I don't think it's gonna be too much of an issue. But if you're using your winch to pull yourself with a vehicle or another vehicle or something, you definitely want to do that with it running. I've already, since I took this off of my Cherokee, I've already pre-tensioned the line. So what you want to do is actually run it all the way out, or almost all the way out, and actually load the line while it's tight onto the drum, so when there's a load on it, so that way you don't get the lines dropping down in between each other and causing a giant rat's nest. So I've already done that, so we're gonna just test it with when I had it on the Cherokee. I already did that when I had it on the Cherokee, so now we're gonna make sure it works still, and here we go. Out. And in. And there we go. So real quick, I'll show you guys the wiring. There's a negative contact down here that is underneath, and then the positive goes into the solenoid box. I just ran it through the grill. You can see it there. Then underneath, it pops out right here. Oop, there it is. Just underneath the radiator there, and the radiator support. I used a lot of this conduit sheathing to protect the wires, just have it zip tied together, and then I just kind of use the existing wiring in here to kind of run it, and I have it dipping underneath everything, coming back up and hooked directly to the battery. Now this has got a quick disconnect here because it's got an old analog clock the previous owner put it on. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to take it off or not, but I didn't hook into that. I hooked directly into the battery. So looks like it's good to go. I'm just going to trim up the zip ties and call this one done. So click like, subscribe, all that good stuff from Flatland Jeeper, and another project done on the 91 YJ. So we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.